There she is, my beautiful friend. Hello, Amanda. It's been so
Hello.
long. It's been so long since you've been on here. We've all been so busy.
I know. I'm happy to be here.
So, how are you feeling today?
Okay. I'm feeling okay. Yep. Yep. The Lord a couple of days ago, he threw a curveball at me in a very funny way.
What happened?
All right. Um your lovely cousin has the pictures that I sent. Um
Yes.
yes. And a couple of days ago, now we're in the window between Purim and Passover, so keep this in mind, right? We're in this very turbulent, serious window right now. And so a couple days ago, I go to look at two animals that we were considering taking in at the sanctuary that desperately need help. Now, I'm not going to tell you those two yet because it's weeks away,
Okay.
us taking them in. However, at the last minute, the woman goes to me, I have two white doves. Can you take them? And I looked up at the Lord. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I just looked up and I was like,
Oh
and
my
there
gosh.
they are, Shalom
Oh,
and Shiloh, I named them.
oh, I
And
love
only
them.
God during Purim and Passover would send me for another animal to set me up to have me come home with two doves.
Oh my goodness, that is so beautiful. Oh
Hmm.
my god, you know what that makes me think of? My dad, he did a concert in Israel at the Tower of David, and my dad was so dramatic and just over the top with everything he did, and he had them release doves at one point, and it was just the most it actually ended up being so beautiful because he was just in the middle of worship, and
Yep.
then and he had people dancing, and it was just a great celebration at the Tower of David, and he released those doves. That's the first thing I thought of when you showed me that. That is just such a
Isn't that
blessing.
wild? So yeah.
You
So
know,
that
and God just has his way of doing that. You remember he sent you that lamb?
he does. He has his way in different seasons of doing this and of sending them for specific purposes. And so I know there's a purpose for these two doves for the season we're coming into. So I know there's something very prophetic
Yes, and you know, actually the
about this.
timing of it too, because one of the main things we wanted to talk about today is your book.
Oh,
And
yes,
it is gonna be
you contributed
released.
to it. My beautiful friend contributed two chapters
I
because her
did.
father was such a large part of this.
I did. I contributed 2 chapters to Amanda's, new book, which is coming out April 1st. Is that correct? There you go.
Yes,
There it
we're
is.
2 days away from
And
the official launch.
don't you love the cover, everybody? I love the tree.
The tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that is. And then at the bottom, it's the prophet on the mountain
Beautiful. It's
seeking the Lord.
absolutely beautiful. I just love how the cover turned out, and the title is so unique, The Revelationary War. So tell us a little bit about, like, what happened. This is your first book, right?
This is my first book, which is interesting. And I'll tell the backstory because it's an amazing
Yes.
backstory to how this book was written. So basically, Charisma had pursued me for 2 years to write a book. And they wanted me to write a book about my life initially. And the Lord is telling me, it's not time to write a book about your life. At the same time, the Lord is telling me this. He's telling Joy, Steve Strang's wife, the same thing. And she's telling the board, it's not time for Amanda to write a book about her life. Amanda is supposed to write a book first about prophecy, but I don't know this. So we're being told the same thing around the same time. So I go, okay, Lord, then I won't write the book about my life yet. You're saying it's not time for that. Okay. So I waited on the Lord. And a pastor of a friend of ours who does our intercessory prayer in Texas, Pastor Rick, has a dream. He's very prophetic in his own right. And he has a dream. And in the dream, I'm on a stage with him and I call somebody out of the audience who is in ministry. And I tell them in the dream they're supposed to write a book called The Revelationary War. And I have him type this up and I send it to that person, even. So I forget about it after that. I've done my job. No, not really. So 7 months later, The Lord returns to Pastor Rick in a dream and says, "Why will man not do what I tell them to do? So now I'm going to a woman."
Mm.
That's exactly what was said to him. And I want Amanda to write this book, call it The Revelationary War, and I want her to ask Danae if she will be willing to contribute to this book. If not, Amanda has to write it by herself. But if Danae is willing to contribute, then that is what has to happen. And basically, I get told this, and I go, okay. And I even double check to make sure nobody else is writing this book. And sure enough, they weren't. So now I have confirmation, and I knew. And so that's when I went back and said, let me tell you what just happened. I tell Charisma now this whole account, start to finish. And they felt the presence of the Lord enter the room, and they said, this book has to be written. We need
Yes.
to pray right now. And then they said, surprise, you've got 2 months to write it. And I
I
went,
remember.
like being shot out of a cannon.
Oh my goodness, I remember this too, and I remember, I obviously know this. I just wanted the people to hear it from you. And what I did was, I what the parts that I contributed all had to do with the vision that God gave my dad in 1993 about the warriors
Yes.
of the new millennium and the unusual people that God was going to choose to use in this time to fight this very unique war.
I guess I'm one of those people.
You definitely are one of those people, without question. And
Okay.
so it's just it really it was a really cool and fun experience. It was a little bit of pressure on you there, your first book, to say 2 months, because I certainly know, I can see people in the chat telling me, "Well, Donna, you need to write a book." Well, I'm sort of waiting on a couple of things. I am writing a book. I've actually started the book about my dad and myself, but I have to wait on a few things before it's time for that to happen. And so I was so honored that you asked me to do it, and it was such a blessing. So everybody, it is coming out. It will be released April 1st. I know I'm seeing in the chat a lot of people did pre-order the book, and again, this is Amanda's first book, you guys, and it is so good. It is good. Like, and
Donna read, so she got to, yep, she got a sneak peek.
I did get a sneak peek. Of course, I
Uh-huh.
had to know what to say as well. But it was just such an anointed time, and you hit the nail on the head again with God using women right now, because I see on social media a lot of men get mad, and women who will say, well, the Bible says, that the women aren't supposed to, but the way I look at this is very similar to World War II. When the men had to go off to fight in the war, the women had to carry certain things and do certain things. And we are in a war right now. Um, sorry, Lou's messaging me. We are in a spiritual war right now, that is so unique and so different, considering the kind of technologies and the things that are happening and what's being exposed and what's happening in the world, and the time that we're in when you start looking at if biblical prophecy and what's happening in the nations of the earth. And so it's such a unique time that God is. I mean, even in our own ministry, God took my dad, and I'm a woman. There were no other men. It was just me and my mom, but we knew we had these prophecies that people needed to see. And so we stuck around instead of shutting it all down. And I am so glad that we did. And it's not that we're trying to be men, because that's a very big problem that's happened with
It is it's a
feminism.
lie of the enemy, actually, to
Really, the
really take women out of their purpose.
yes.
Yeah.
And feminism has unfortunately done that, to where now they can't even define what a woman is, and if you want to be a real woman, then you're going to have to be a man. And this is actually going back quite far, where women have to, you've got to do it better than a man. That whole idea is very damaging, actually, to what it means to be a woman, because a being a woman is necessary. And what you see is the weakening of men in our societies, because the women who are supposed to be doing what women do, and I'm not saying every woman needs to be barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen. There's many women that God has called. Again, we can look around the world that are called to do certain things, but there's a standard for women. This idea, this lie, you have to be a man, to the point now that it's become the transgender thing,
Yes.
to where the woman of the year is a transgender man, and
Mhm.
that is not good for women. And so we can see how subtle and cunning the enemy has been in this time to
Mhm.
deceive many, but also to bring us down and make us feel there's something wrong with us, when God created us for a purpose.
He
And
did, and
so,
we're meant to be a helpmeet, not
yes,
a helpmate, a helpmeet, because we are meant to help meet where
it's good.
there is a weakness or where there's a deficiency or where there's needs to be fortification, right? The woman was created to help meet that
Yes,
in a relationship between a man and a woman. Perfect example of this, how the Lord will rearrange depending on what happens when there is a special circumstance that arises. Me and Chris, my husband
yes,
suffers a traumatic brain injury, right? He can't do
exactly.
what he did. Now all of a sudden our whole lives change. I have to run the ministry on my own, right? He can't really be a contractor and a builder at the moment anymore. And suddenly the Lord has me raise up and help meet that head of household need, to help meet that now and help him with that because the time required it. And when it requires it, sort of like when the Lord raised Deborah up as a judge
Yes,
amongst men, the time required it. It was a special and unique time in Israel when that happened, where it was needed and it was required. So we're
yes.
seeing that now.
And really, just as your the title of your book, The
Missionary
Revelationary
War.
Wars.
Mhm.
Now, tell me about the title a little bit.
The title was spoken in the dream, and it's interesting because when it was spoken to me, and the Lord began to speak to me about this, and there was so much warfare trying to write this book. The enemy did not want this
Mhm.
book written by any
Right.
means. When the Lord started talking to me about the title, the first shot against man, because really the first shot against God was the rebellion in the heavenlies, right? The first shot then against God's creation was at the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And it became a revelationary war where God spoke a revelation that man was supposed to adhere to. And then the enemy came in and countered with
Yes.
his own revelation. And it has raged through the generations, this war, and it has now reached a feverish pitch in the time that we're in.
Absolutely, it has. And so I loved it when Amanda, you guys, when Amanda told me the title, I absolutely loved it. You can ask her. And then
Well, she was very
when she
excited.
was designing the cover and what it would look like, the tree of life, and just all the imagery, just so beautiful. And so I'm so proud and honored to be a part of this. And I just want to thank you for just inviting me to contribute, because it was such an honor to do that. There you go, everybody. You can see. Um, oh, what is that background you've got there, Lou? That's exciting. Like we're
That is.
traveling through
I feel
space.
like I'm in Star Wars in a galaxy far, far away,
That's
like
Lou
where
doing
we're going right now.
that's Lou doing what he does back there. But there's the cover, you guys. And so this has been something Amanda and I, and just in the beginning, just when she started working on it, I remember her telling me about it and not being sure. And so we're so excited. Release date is April 1st. That's
Yes.
right.
Yeah,
April 1st.
because it's April Fools on the devil.
Yay, I
That's
love
what
that.
this is. Yep. That's why isn't it funny that the Lord would have the book come out April Fools of
Yes.
all the times? Jokes
April
on
Fools
him.
on the devil. I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
Jokes
And
on
so you
him.
guys, if I know I'm already seeing people in the comments are saying they've pre-ordered, so that's awesome. But if you didn't know about the book, or if you haven't had a chance, or maybe you forgot, it is released day after tomorrow because there's
Yes,
31 days in March. So that
absolutely.
will be Tuesday. And please, please go and get yourself a copy of it. Um, uh, have we put the ways to get it in there, Lou? I know there was a
It's on
QR
Barnes
code.
and Noble too right now. So
It's
it's
on
on
Barnes& and
Amazon,
Noble.
it's
That's
on
great.
Barnes and Noble. So
Okay, good. And so make sure you have a look at that. Oh, it's in the description. You guys, in the description of this video, wherever you are watching, Lou has put all the information so that you
thank
can
you.
go and get it, and then you guys can read what I wrote. I wrote a couple of
It
chapters
was
in there,
great
2
chapters.
chapters I wrote,
Mhm.
and I wrote the story about when my dad broke his wrists and what happened after that, and how God showed him the warriors of the new millennium. We are those warriors, everybody. That's us. And a lot of people can get intimidated like by that, and maybe people get nostalgic of times past and when would I live. But you know what I feel like I'm so happy to be alive right now, that of all the time in history that we were, could have been born.
Yes,
I am so glad that I was born in this time, because this is a time like no other, and
yes,
God is doing unusual things throughout the earth, and
yes.
and it's a time of revelation, really. It really is, because the good and the bad has been revealed to us,
Hmm.
especially over the last decade. We've it's a lot has happened all through the Trump stuff, all through what's happening right now with Doge, with the uncovering of corruption, that God is not going to tolerate it anymore because of the innocence that has been brutalized by this. Specifically, the children that have suffered. Not only the children that have not been given a chance to be born, that have been ripped from the womb, but those who have been abused and enslaved. And God is just not going to tolerate it anymore. And so he warned us through prophetic voices like my dad and also Amanda. Prophecy is not just about predicting, it's
Amen.
also about having an understanding about what is actually going on.
The signs of the times, exactly. Having a deep, like the sons of Issachar, that could discern the times and the seasons and understood the times, and where that's part of the prophetic office. Absolutely.
It's a huge part because it helps walk us through. Like, you can see information and say, well, what is going on? I don't understand what God's doing. A prophetic gift will help you. And sometimes it may be one in you, and sometimes God will send you a prophet. And that is to help us. And it is a beautiful gift of the Holy Spirit that God has given us. And so it's
Amen.
super exciting. We're very, very excited about that. Now, there's one more thing there's something else I wanted to talk to you about today,
Yes.
and that's Joseph.
Ooh.
So you were talking to me about Joseph on the
Hmm.
phone the other day,
Yes.
and Trey Smith, who was on last week, has had this thing about Joseph. And when we're talking about Joseph, we're talking about Joseph with the coat of many colors,
Hmm.
not Joseph and Mary Joseph. We're talking about Joseph in Egypt. And so, of course, the other thing we've seen happen in this past week is some strange things have been discovered under the pyramids. And, who knows what that actually really is? I'm very excited about it,
Yes.
um,
Interesting.
because one of those Egypt people. But there's something I want to show you. Now, if they see that, are they going to see personal information, email addresses? I have an email I wrote to my dad in 2012. I want to show you guys. And I was taking a humanities
Okay, I'm going to look for something while you're doing that.
go
Okay.
ahead, you can do that.
Okay.
So, I was taking a humanities class on, how do we what if I can you crop it somehow or scroll up?
Hmm.
Scroll up before you share it. Okay, there. You could start there and I can scroll. Okay, that should work as long as it
Okay.
shows like that. I just don't want people's, because I've not only my email address, but I've forwarded this to other people. So there's other email addresses in here, and I don't want to like put out publicly people's private
Okay.
information.
Hmm.
Okay, well, wait, let me
I'm
just
going
see
to
which is up.
find it.
Okay, okay, that's up. All
Hmm.
right. Okay, so in 2012, I was taking a class on ancient civilizations. It was a humanities class. It wasn't history. It was on like culture and art in different ancient civilizations, and one of them was Egypt. And I'm just taking this class because I had to take I needed a what you call it, whatever. I just needed to take it, and so I was taking this class, and it was interesting. And I've always been interested in Egypt, and I've had all kinds of theories over the years, of course. And so this is an email that I wrote to my dad, and I put this all together because as I was taking the class, I'm looking at historical record from Egypt, so Egypt's
Yeah.
history. And in it, I'm seeing things that connect with the Bible. And it was so interesting. And so, okay, Lou, you can pull it up. Get my mouse. Okay, I'm
Oh,
going
I
to read
found
it
it.
to you.
Okay.
I'm going to read it to you. Okay, so I'm saying this is me talking to my dad. I should have brought my granny glasses. I'm going to have to lean in. So I'm saying to my dad, okay, so I did some research on that pharaoh. So I had been talking to dad about this. And I'm talking about being wrong about Moses. I thought it was Moses. I was trying to find the time, like what era are we in? And I said, okay, so Joseph with the coat of many colors was in Egypt around 1390 BC. As far as I can tell, the Pharaoh at the time, and look, anybody watching this, if I am incorrect, this is old research I did in 2012. It's very possible I could have been wrong about dates. If I get
Oh
anything
my
wrong, feel
gosh.
free to correct me. But it's still interesting. So around 1390 BC, as far as I can tell, the Pharaoh at the time was at the time that Joseph was there was Tutmosis the Fourth. He
Okay.
ruled Egypt from 1401 to 1391 BC, and from what they can tell, he was very ill when he died. He's most famous for renovating the Sphinx or pulling the sand out, uncovering it, which up until that point had been covered in sand up to the head. They didn't even know there was a body. Maybe they did. I'm speculating there. The story goes that when he was a young prince, this is now Tutmosis the Fourth, and this is the dreaming pharaoh. So you remember Joseph in the Bible is interpreting the dreams of the pharaoh. Well, this is his story. This is Egyptian history. Now I'm taking this from. Um, uh, I'll find my place here. Okay, the story goes when he was a young prince, he was on a hunt, and when he came upon the head of the Sphinx sticking out of
Hmm.
the sand, he leaned up. He was out hunting. He leaned up against it, and he took a nap. And he had a dream. And in the dream, the Sphinx spoke to him and told him that if he renovated it, he would become pharaoh. Again, this is just Egyptian history, so whatever they believed, it doesn't really matter here. But this is what happened. So he has a dream. He's got to do this. So let's see, he would become pharaoh. The thing was, his older brother was actually the crown prince, and he wasn't meant to be the pharaoh. So when he had this dream, his brother was going to be the pharaoh.
Yes.
And then how he became the pharaoh is a mystery. Obviously, something happened to the brother, and so this would have him. So here's a story of him dreaming. Now, you remember with Joseph, he was interpreting the pharaoh's dreams. This is so interesting. And so what we came to find out with it was that Joseph's Egyptian name was Yahya or Yuya. So Egyptians gave other names to one another. You remember in ancient Egypt, your given name was supposed to be a secret. It was supposed to be like a curse to actually write your real name. So this is Egyptian beliefs again. Um, and so his name was Yahya or Yuya.
Oh my
And
goodness.
officials and people who were personal assistants or aides to the pharaoh were commonly called the son of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh referred to his aides and people who, like Joseph, who was with him there, would have been called son of Pharaoh. It was a term of endearment or like a title the Pharaoh,
Yeah.
except for one. Ever in Egyptian history, although I'd say in here you need to double check that it might have happened again, but it was very rare, who was called father to Pharaoh. So his Egyptian name was Yahya, and he also was thought to be the foreign, particularly Hebrew, because of the way he wore his beard. Now, again, I'm taking this from Egyptian history. Here is a picture of his mummified remains. And so, if you can see that on the screen, you see that there's his mummy, found in the Valley of the Kings. He's on the left and his wife's on the right. And you see how he's buried. Now, Egyptians were buried a certain way. He was buried differently because he was not Egyptian. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's another level of evidence here. So then he's buried with his hands under his chin, and his wife on the right is buried traditional Egyptian style with the hands on the heart or stomach. His wife's name was Chuya, and their daughter Tiye, who became the great royal wife of Tutmos the Fourth's son, Amenhotep III. All right. So that means they must have been very close, Tutmos IV and Joseph, because their children married each other. It also appears that Joseph was with Tutmos when he became ill and died. So Joseph remained very close to the Pharaoh all through his life. And here's Tutmos's remains. There's a picture of him also found in the Valley of the Kings. And here is why, this is me speaking to my dad now, 10, 13, 15 years ago, whatever, how long 2012 was. And here's why I believe that Yahya, Tutmos IV's Hebrew right-hand man, was Joseph. In Genesis 45, verse 8, Joseph is talking to his brothers and says, "So now it was not you that sent me hither." So he's speaking to his brothers. He's saying, "You didn't send me, but God, and he hath made me a
Yes.
father to Pharaoh." And that is the very same term that in Egyptian history, when they refer to Yahya or Joseph, not as son of Pharaoh, as was traditionally the title given, but father of Pharaoh. So you have in Egyptian history, Joseph was so revered by the Pharaoh that he didn't call him son of Pharaoh, he called him father of Pharaoh. But in the Bible, in Genesis 45, verse 8, Joseph speaking to his brothers said, "You, even though you sent me into, sold me into slavery and all this happened, God is the one who actually sent me here, and he has made me a father to
Yes.
Pharaoh." So there you have in the Bible and in Egyptian history the same term of endearment used, which is so interesting to me because, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you are seeing Joseph and God is showing you Joseph. And Trey Smith is seeing
Yes.
Joseph and God is, and so on a spiritual level, in the midst of discoveries in Egypt that kind of seem to be connecting to evidence of things that
It,
we're going to discover. Let's say
yes.
that. Because
Yes.
we know that, okay, so Amenhotep had Akhenaten. So that means that Joseph's daughter married the Pharaoh's son,
Hmm.
and then they had Akhenaten. And Akhenaten moved the capital uh, uh, to, I always forget the name of it. I was scroll down here. I'm struggling to read this without my glasses. Um, I'm just going to look here quickly. I'm almost done with this, but I want to see what is it? The name of the. He moved the capital and changed the religion to worship one God. Now it's the sun god, and maybe it was a bit distorted there, but you can see Joseph's influence on the pharaohs and their family. God
Yes.
putting him in there had such an influence on Akhenaten that he said, "No, there's not all these gods. There's one God.
Good.
And I'm moving the capital." And you know what happened to Akhenaten? The religious system, all those priests
Oh
who
yeah, it was big money.
who
The
stay in
religious
the
system,
temples over
big
there, they did
money.
not, they and nobody knows what happened to Akhenaten. He disappeared.
Yeah.
And his son was Tutankhamun.
Oh, King Tut.
King Tut was Akhenaten's
King
son.
Tut in
So
very
isn't it
so King
interesting?
Tut is in the line of Joseph.
Yes,
Joseph is in the line
the
of King Tut.
bloodline was infiltrated into the royal family of Egypt.
Wow. That is incredible.
Isn't it?
I found what I was looking for you.
Yes.
It
Lou, you
was a
can take that off the
prophecy.
screen now.
It was a prophecy from December 14th, 2022.
Yes.
So this is well over 2 years old, this word, going on 2.5 years old soon. And I'm going to read this to you because I think you're going to find it interesting. The Lord even talks in the same word about the South Pacific and what would start to happen there. And Thailand happens to be near the South Pacific.
Oh,
It's more
wow.
inland, but it's in that area. Okay. So this is what he says, December 14th, 2022. And says the Lord of hosts, 3 leaders worldwide shall step down. Egypt shall arise in the midst as there is an attempt for Egypt to come back and become the superpower it once was, as that ruler in the realm of the spirit is thirsty for power and greatness. However, a Jewish man shall put a stop to their plan. Their advance will only go so far as a Joseph shall arise in Egypt as well. And Egypt for a time shall be steered from engagement. However, there are talks within Egypt between leaders, and there has been a very capital tempting offer made. The leader of Egypt has been offered a treaty of great wealth and weaponry. However, the serpent behind this treaty, this opportunity shall be made known as one that appears to be a friend, is attempting to throttle the nations near Israel in order to intimidate and cause Israel to come into line with the agenda of the UN, with the agenda of brotherhoods, with the agenda of Persia. However, capital says the Lord, this will not occur as their plans will falter, for Israel will go forth and strike. There is a threat coming to the entire nation. That was October 7th, where Israel will be compelled to act, and I, the Lord thy God, will use my son Benjamin of my right hand or right arm to exact the wage and judgment upon this nation. Israel shall be protected. However, it will put other nations on high alert as the sirens sound and the UN has an emergency meeting. That happened. However, they too will falter. Will not hurt my firstborn, for they are about to suffer a strike, a blow so scandalous for the blasphemous ceremonies they did on holy ground. And he goes on about the UN a little more. And then he says, watch the South Pacific for events in the sea as well as the islands. Strange phenomenon and events for what is swirling in the spirit shall occur in the natural and shall be an indicator of what is about to come. And then he goes into the ecosystem. So this is back in 2022.
Wow.
This
Wow,
word
Amanda.
is given.
And that's just happened in Thailand.
Yeah.
Oh, that was scary. That was a scary.
Between
Anybody
Purim
up
and
on those
Passover, by
skyscrapers?
the way, within this window, that's when that earthquake strikes.
I was actually about to tell you to do that, Lou. Lou's telling me right now. So we have a prophecy of my dad's
Oh, good.
on Egypt and the pyramids, and he talks about Joseph too.
Oh,
Lou.
let's talk about
Here we go.
it. Let's hear it.
For the Spirit of God will speak tonight. I speak of Joseph. I speak of what happened to Joseph. How he was imprisoned. And how Joseph, at the right time, served his purpose. Hear, O Israel, listen to the people of his house. There is another Joseph that has arisen. Egypt, it's too late. Joseph has already entered into the courts of your prison. The spirit of Joseph will once again visit and claim the right to the ear of those that are standing in rulership and will stand in rulership. God says, I'm raising up the spirit of Joseph in Egypt, and he will make it through the prison and will be released. And Egypt shall say, what has happened? Why are we listening to this voice that represents Yeshua, that represents Yahweh? Why are we being influenced and God says Joseph will grow and grow and grow, and suddenly there shall be wisdom. And God said, I will protect Israel, and I will take Egypt, and I will cause a Joseph spirit to be raised up, to change, and to do what he did once before, says the Lord. Come on. So the reason that I'm speaking about Joseph today is because a word came to me, and he said, God said, listen, pyramids are crumbling, they're breaking, they're falling down. Pyramids, we know pyramids are still there, but it has a spiritual meaning. In other words, I want to do something very different in Egypt, and spoke about a Joseph that is already present in Egypt. It may not be one person. It may be a group of people, an entity, but they are going to be a voice to the leaders. And then there's something unusual is going to happen. Think about it. This is being given to you in secret from the den before it happens.
That is wild. You know what's funny about this? That many times, because you put that mantle on me, the Lord, without me knowing, will have me carry on prophetic words and have me say them, right? And echo them or repeat without knowing what was said.
Yeah,
So,
because you didn't know that.
no,
I
I had
already
no clue
know
that was
that's your first
prophesied
time
from him.
seeing that.
And now, so the fact that that was echoed in 2022 again, we're
Yes.
coming into that time, guys. What was just discovered beneath the pyramids and what's happening, there's a shift happening in Egypt, and we are about to see that Joseph, whether it's a company of people, whether it's a person, we're about to see that way made straight for it.
Absolutely. And that was really cool what just happened.
That is cool.
Because you prophesied, and then I played my dad from 2013, and look at that. That is confirmation that it's God.
Amen. It is.
Because human beings couldn't have orchestrated that, and
No,
everybody that's with
no.
us. Yeah. Like that is so beautiful. And there is the Joseph. And that's a very important thing to be looking at. And again, Trey Smith also, he's the one that kind of got me thinking about it. And then I talked to you yesterday, and you were talking about Joseph, and I looked at that email that I had sent, and you can see the reflection in the Bible, which is showing you, yes, this is true for those who question it, and then God revealing His plans. And that's 2013, and then you saw 2022. That's almost 10 years again. Like there's that sort of, it's almost like a rhythm or a beat
Yeah.
to it. And so that's just awesome. So beautiful.
God.
It was really cool. That was actually just a really cool moment.
That was great.
And so yeah, we are in unprecedented times. I'm reading comments here. Egypt holds hostages underground. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that are being revealed right now.
Do you know what happened in 2021 in Egypt? They did
No.
something very strange.
What?
So it's interesting that 4 years later, we see what's beginning to happen here. So in 2021, in the middle of COVID, Egypt did something very shady.
Huh.
They did an enormous ceremony and moved all of their pharaohs. Huge, you could go look this up. Huge pomp and circumstance.
Huh.
Huge parade of the pharaohs. And they did it, I believe, around the time of Passover.
Wow, I did not know that.
And these pharaohs were pulled from their tombs, you could look this up, and paraded in the streets and brought to their, quote, new home in the middle of what was going on in the world. So look this up, because this is a real thing, and Egypt really did this. And so the fact 4 years later, this is happening now, I don't think is by any accident.
Oh no, not by accident at all. And I could just, when I saw them make that discovery, it was like it leapt in my spirit. It's like this driving from in your soul, and it's not just like, oh, it's exciting, it's ancient. There's something deeply spiritual going on that I think has a lot more to do. I mean, a lot less to do with actual pyramids,
Yes.
but the spiritual
Yeah.
element of it, and understanding that about Joseph, which keeps coming up and coming up.
Okay.
And
So,
so, yeah, go ahead.
okay. So it occurred April 3rd, 2021.
April
Pa-
3rd, 2021.
April 3rd, 2021. Passover that year
So that's
was March
almost.
27th, 2021 to April 4th, 2021. They moved them during Passover.
I never knew that.
Yep.
I am gonna look that up because that's
Look it
really
up.
interesting, and it is weird.
Hmm.
Because it's already hard enough to try to just do anything with the pyramids because of the government there, and you've got Zahi Hawass over there, and the head of antiquities. He just comes in and shuts everything down. It's very suspicious the way they handle all of that, because I saw people saying, if they've done this scan under the pyramids and they see there's something gigantic under there, it's as easy as drilling a hole and going and having a look, and they will not allow us to do that. And that actually makes them look like they're hiding something. It really is
It does.
foolish, I think, of the people in charge over there. But again, anything also that gives credit to God, and this is across the board, so this is historically, this is anything. We're seeing that being attacked right now, and you don't see that happening to any other religion. For instance, in Hollywood and in the movies, you
Yeah.
can't say Jesus.
Yeah, that's true.
And people are under contract. You're not allowed to say his name. I mean, maybe that's changing now, but I know that was the thing. Like you can't glorify Jesus. You could only mock him, and you don't see that with any other religion. And then someone in the chats over here saying energy source. That's very interesting too, because Dad prophesied a new energy, death to debt. These are very interesting things, because if you were to sort of look at the pyramids instead of being tombs, but as sort of having a utility, and then you look where all the other pyramids are, it would make sense that it might have been some pre-diluvian energy source, because God flooded the earth. So we don't know how. Think of how much we've advanced technologically in the last 100 years.
Enormous.
I mean, just a little over 100 years, we didn't even have planes. And look at how much we've advanced in 100 years. So think about going back pre-flood, where you had Nephilim and Watchers. There was a whole different thing going on there. They were sharing things with mankind that they weren't supposed to be, that
Yes.
mankind wasn't ready for.
Mhm.
That's interesting too. So, um, we don't have all the answers today. We don't have all, but these are things that are worthy to shed light on and
Yes.
to discuss. And that's also part of the prophetic. We're dealing with the more mysterious things, like Tesla coils. And that's what I think when I look at those pyramids, and what the diagram that they made based on the scans, the scientists that did it. It's long pillars with like a spiral, which seems like a Tesla coil. You think of Nikola Tesla and the coils, and his way of doing electricity or energy was uh, um, different to Edison. They went with Edison's way because because they could make money, and that's always the thing. But we
Amazing.
certainly are in an interesting time. And we definitely are in a new kind of spiritual warfare. And so fitting that Amanda's book, The Revelationary Wars, the revelation that will come of this war that we're in. There it is again at the bottom of your screen. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to read this.
Thank
You
you.
will not be disappointed. We are actually running out of time.
It's got
Amanda.
decades of prophetic information. We go back decades and decades and decades with this.
Yes, so I really encourage. We're running out of time, Amanda, so I've got to go. But I really want everybody to, if you can, please go and order this book. It is released the 1st of April,
The official release, yeah.
the official release, but you can pre-order now. And I highly recommend it. Not just because I wrote I wrote 2 chapters of it. Whether or not I had contributed, I would still highly, highly
Well,
recommend
thank
this.
you. Yes,
And
it's
lots of people are
great.
saying they've pre-ordered their book, and so we're
Thank
just so
you.
excited about this. And I'm so grateful that you were able to join me today. And I
Thank you
just
for
want to
having
give you a chance to anything you want to share before we go. And how can people just find you in case someone's seeing you for the first time? How can they find you? And where can
well,
they watch you?
they can go to ARC with a K, arcofgrace.org. And also, so I'll give you a few of our sites. So we're Arc of Grace Ministries on YouTube and Rumble, and on TikTok. We're Arc of Grace Ministries. On Facebook, we're Arc of Grace Ministry with a Y. Instagram, we're Arc of Grace 88. And on X, we're at Amanda Grace _AOG. And we also have an app you can download in your app store. Search Arc of Grace. You'll see the dove with the olive branch. You can download our app, but our website, arcofgrace.org, has all our official websites to watch
Yes.
on.
And it is so awesome what God has anointed her to do, and also so unique and beautiful. And I knew the very moment I met Amanda Grace, I knew her and I would be friends. God
It was,
actually
yeah.
nudged me toward her and said, "Go to her."
It was
And I
amazing. Remember what you told me? You had told me one of the first times we met. You said, Amanda, when you prophesy, you sound like my dad.
yes, you feel you
Agree.
feel like my dad. That was what it was. It
Yeah,
feels that feeling I would get. I
yeah.
hadn't felt it in so long, and when I met you, I felt it, and it was like going home.
Oh,
Amanda and I are exactly the same age. We're born the same year. Not the same birthday, but we're born the same year. And there's a lot of parallels in our lives, and God has put us together, and we are very, very good friends. We share a love of animals, and a lot of similarities in our lives. And so it's always just such a pleasure to have you join me on the show. And of course, I call Amanda all the time, and we talk
yes, she
for
does.
hours.
And we talk about the funniest stuff sometimes. The conversations are hilarious.
That's something people should be able to sometimes hear, or maybe not. But thank you so much for joining me again. And anybody watching, the book is The Revelationary Wars, released. You can pre-order it now, but it will be released on the 1st, which is this Tuesday. And I highly recommend it. Please, please go and get that book and read it, because you are going to be blessed. It is going to help you to understand what is going on in the world right now. And this is why God gave us the prophetic. Like I said, it's not just about predicting things, it's about helping us understand and the revelation that comes with that gift. And so, again, I thank you so much for joining me today, Amanda Grace.
Thank you
And
for having me, my
she
friend.
will be back soon for
Yes,
sure, especially if
I'll come
something
back.
exciting happens.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You should just call. Come right on.
And so, love to Chris and kiss all the animals.
Thank you.
Thanks
I
again
will.
for joining me.